Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. This is your host Kulan Nayab and you're watching a talk show which is basically a new initiative from this department, and I as your host would be inviting few guests every Thursday for a very informative sharing of information. And today we have on board Dr. Ali Saeed and Dr. Samreen. The topic for our today's show is overcoming Pakistan's debt. Before I invite my speakers to please speak, I would like to introduce the personalities sitting right here with me. Dr. Ali Saeed is a PhD management from University of Leicester, UK, currently serving as a head of department Management Sciences. He also holds an experience of conducting digital resources trainings at 50 Pakistani universities funded by HEC. He has also worked as a director student affairs and BU. Dr. Samreen is a PhD economics, currently serving as assistant professor. She has a vast experience in teaching and research, a good hand of experience in administration and management side. Research publications of hers are 12. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Madam Dr. Samreen. So as you, Dr. Samreen and Dr. Ali Saeed, the topic of our discussion, as you know, is pretty disturbing, of course, because it's about Pakistani debts, and being a Pakistani citizen, it's always a liability, and liability is always a burden. So first of all, Dr. Ali Saeed, my question for you is, why is the debt a problem, and what is basically a historical aspect behind it?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for hosting the show. This is the first show. I think it's a good I think a good step towards informing our potential students and viewers of some issues that concern Pakistan and the wider world. So thank you very much. And coming to your question, I think the historical aspect of debt has been, if we look at Pakistan and Pakistan's economy and society since 1971.
Right.
Because when I go into my class and when I teach them economics, I don't really go before 71, because at that time the country was in two parts.
Right.
So looking at the Pakistan that we have since 1971, one of the reasons historically that we have had a debt problem is that our budgets have always been in deficit.
Right.
We have always spent more than what we were earning.
True.
So I think that's the basic reason that in old times mother used to say कि उतने ही पैर फैलाओ जितनी चादर है. तो हमने असूल मदर से सीखा, लेकिन उसको प्रैक्टिकली पाकिस्तान में उसको इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया. So I think that is problem number one. And then I think historically another problem is that since 1977,
right,
if you look at Pakistan's security issues, primarily because of Afghanistan, since 1977 is the time when the Russians actually came in Afghanistan, but the problem had even started in the mid-70s.
Right.
And the foreign interference in this region started. So the Russians started interfering in Afghanistan, the Americans also came in. It was what you call the height of the Cold War, the 70s. So at that time, the US and some other allies, our friends in the Middle East and the US, said that we will give you some money.
Right.
You're already spending more than what you're earning.
True.
So we will provide you economic aid, and we'll provide you security aid and aid for the the three armed forces, economic aid, military aid. So I think since then, one way or the other, our budget was a problem, and we got this influx of aid from foreign countries.
True.
So this aid was easy money, where we stopped working hard in the 80s and in the 90s, because we knew that there are some friends in the Middle East, there are some friends in the US who will help us and give us some money.
They're more dependent on them.
So till the time Afghanistan was an issue for them, and we were part of the solution, they kept helping us.
Right.
But then in 2001, I think, when September 11th happened, even then they started helping us again.
Yeah.
But I think since the turn of the century, the US friendship of ours has seen a lot of lows as well.
Right.
Where they have stopped our economic aid.
True.
So our budgets, which are in deficit, and then when our friends stop our money, so this debt problems becomes bigger and bigger. And then once if your friends are not very friendly with you, then IMF and World Bank are also not very friendly with you.
True that.
So So this debt, then they give you money at a very high interest rate.
Right.
So I think, so because of, I think first issue is the budget deficit.
Yes.
Say.
Then our dependence on foreign aid.
Right.
And then us not working very hard.
Right.
So this would be the historical aspect.
Yeah. So what, in your opinion, what do you think is the more of a problem, a local debt or a foreign debt?
I think it's a combination of both. I think Pakistan, unfortunately, because of the reasons that I just highlighted, because of all these reasons, when we got into the problem of debt, then we are borrowing from our local banks. Our federal government and our provincial governments also borrow from the central bank,
Right.
which is the state bank. So I think it's a combination of both,
Right.
where we are borrowing from outside, these days from IMF, the World Bank, and then we are borrowing from our local banks.
Right.
That problem is, for example, the banks in Pakistan, when they have a choice, either to lend at, let's say, 7% to the government, which is a one window operation,
Absolutely.
or look for borrowers in the economy, for them it's easier to go and give it to the government.
Yeah.
So I think they also take a shortcut. So I think it's a combination of both.
Right. So basically, we're actually focusing more on the imports and less of an export. But don't you think the CPAC would help opening a new,
I think
ways?
maybe Dr. Saveen can also highlight some historical aspect, and then maybe I can
Like just as Dr. Ali mentioned, that we have like two types of debts,
Right.
external as well as internal.
Right.
So in case of external, we like borrow from IMF and World Bank, and you know that it has reached the age of almost 8.5 trillion.
Really?
So like it's a huge sum, and we are unable to pay it.
Right.
Even the internal debt, our internal debt is almost 3.1 trillion Pakistan rupees. So इतना ज़्यादा हो गया है कि अभी हम उसको रीपे करना, और per person अगर आप इसको calculate करें, just the external debt, it's kind of a monthly salary of a person. Although our population has raised, but still it's a burden on us.
Ma'am, do you think it's unfortunately only us as a Pakistani facing this debt trap, or is it the entire world facing it?
Like world is also facing, like it's kind of a vicious circle by which we are taking and which we are giving.
Right.
But still, like we are not overcoming it. Like
Right.
it's not that debt is a bad thing. कि बहुत ही बुरा है, नहीं लेना चाहिए. Obviously, for economic growth, we need it because our resources are not so much कि हम उसको finance कर सकें. We need a helping hand, but we are now dependent on it, just as Dr. Ali said, like we are dependent on it, and we are not like repaying it. ये तो नॉर्मल ही है. अगर एक बंदा बार बार आपसे मांग रहा हो और मांगता ही रहे और वापस ना दे आपको अपना कर्जा, तो ऑब्वियसली फिर बाहर फिर हम देंगे ही नहीं ना. जिसने देना है वो देने वाले ही नहीं होगा. So still, like we have, it is a problem. और according to new statistics, पाकिस्तान के लिए मुश्किल इस वजह से बन गई है कि अब वो डिफॉल्टर लिस्ट में आने वाला है. Like it is among the 10 defaulter list country.
Is it?
हाँ. वेनेजुएला आ गई है और उसके बाद हमारा तीसरा नंबर है.
Right.
So like we have to be careful about it. अब कुछ तो करना है.
Right. So what are the other countries who are actually on the same platform?
For example, if you look at the world's biggest economy, which is the US still now, China is number 2.
Right.
Even Americans have budget deficits. Because I think only Bill Clinton, before the turn of the century, he had some years where he balanced the budget. He was one of the US presidents who had a balanced budget, and he had one of the lowest unemployment figures in America. Because at that time the US as a nation was not involved in any war, so their budgets were balanced, their unemployment was low. But even the US runs with budget deficits. They have budget deficits, but the strength of the domestic economy, their productivity, and their international footprint, the volume of exports they have, the size of their domestic production, their military production, and that is so strong that deficit is a lesser evil. So okay, they have a deficit, but their other things of the economy are so good that deficit is not a big problem for them. But in Pakistan, Pakistan is like a patient which has 10 other problems as well, and also has a debt problem.
Which is the major
Like if you look at a normal person walking in on a December morning, okay, he has a, he has, let's say, little bit of temperature, but the other 10 things are okay with him. His eyes are working, he's talking, and he can come in and teach in a class. So Americans are like that debt, they have a debt, but it's smaller problem, and the other 10 problems they don't have. But in Pakistan, you look at their problem like inflation,
recession,
the recession. Then we have a lot of unemployment. Our education level is not that. We do not have a lot of educated people. Health. So there are multiple foreign investment flows. And how many people are coming for tourism to us? And compare it to how many people want to go to America, or how many people want to go to Sri Lanka. So our problems in other areas are also a lot. Debt combined. So a patient which has just one problem, he might survive a long time. But we are a patient which has multiple problems, and debt is one of them.
So, but then you as an the analyst, how would you see a solution to it? How can we overcome this problem? Because this is like a never-ending solution.
I think one day, I think, for example, if you look at from the micro perspective, let's say if you look at one person, if he wants to come out of debt, he has to decide one day that I will not borrow anymore. Let's say you're in a debt problem. You owe money to your bank. You owe money to your brother. You owe money to your neighbor. So someday you will have to decide that okay, from now onwards I will not take future debt. And with my income, that because Pakistan has income. Pakistan's economy does produce income for people and the country and for the government. So if one day they decide that okay, from now onwards, let's suppose we will not borrow from abroad, we will not borrow from the World Bank, we will not invite the IMF, so this is full stop. And then with the existing income, try to pay back the foreign debt, local debt. If for some time you can't pay, tell them that for next 5 years we are not paying you back, but we will also not ask you for more debt. So that should be our first step.
That should be the first step.
The full stop on future borrowing, at least from the foreign donors. So that being the first step, and then the second is that as an economy we have to produce more. Our basics, which is productivity, that has to go up. Our people have to be more educated, more healthy, more skillful. We have to have technology, we have to have the factories, agriculture has to produce more. So when we'll produce more, we will export, we'll have foreign currency. With foreign currency we'll be able to pay back our previous debts. And not so I think we have to work hard.
So coming back to your first point of solution, your stance is that we should focus less on borrowing. But what if our resources are not being efficiently utilized to the sectors which has a need to be? Then what about that? Because we have a government as such. So
I would not comment about the government, but one thing I can say that every government that comes anywhere in the world, it has some priority area. That we want to develop this sector, and let's say in Pakistan, if you look at the last 10 years, a lot of priority has been gone down in infrastructure. A lot of priorities money has flown towards the energy sector. Okay, these are your priorities, and you need energy for the economy to work. But is it that important that you need to borrow? Let's say you're borrowing $250 million from IMF to have an energy plant set up. So the whole Pakistan economy cannot give you $250 million. And do you really need money from? So I think the government has to set the priorities. And as a nation, as I told you previously, let's say if you give the example of a patient, you have to take a bitter pill.
That's true.
You cannot. It's not that you want to come out of the debt problem, because the reason I said we should not borrow further foreign debt is that whenever foreigners give you money, whether it's the donor agencies or whether it's other countries, it always comes with a price.
True.
There is no free lunch. I think
True.
Dr.
Yeah,
Sandeep
yeah.
will
Yeah.
agree. We tell our first semester economics
we
students,
not-
I'm
Yeah,
sure
you
you were
said.
our student.
Exactly.
There is no free
There's no free lunch.
Yeah.
So whenever you will borrow money from donors or other countries, your friends, it will always come with a political price.
Right.
It will always come
Yeah.
with some foreign
Obviously,
pressure, your
yeah.
policies. And even so and so, I've seen it in the newspapers that donors coming and telling you privatize this.
Right.
No, okay, maybe but it's our decision.
True.
Let's say you are in a house and you borrow money from your brother and he comes in and says that don't use a 32-inch TV, use a 20-inch
Yeah.
TV. You know, so he is giving you money, so he will dictate.
Exactly.
It's your house.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
will decide.
True. True.
So I think
So we have to spend money and
so,
Yeah.
so it's I think it's the borrowing is not that we are borrowing and we are going into debt. When we are borrowing, we are compromising our freedom.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So you take debt from foreigners, then you compromise your freedom, and in these situations, your economy will not develop.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
Dr. Samreen, in your opinion, what is a public debt?
Public debt is like the same thing, like borrowing from either external or internal sources, and it's definitely a liability.
Right.
Because debt is, on the whole, it's not a positive thing which we say that it's something. What we say it's
a
a healthy
liability
for
yeah.
healthy for economy. So this is like, and what we have already mentioned, there are different types of debt are there.
Right.
So if we are just as Dr. Ali also saying that we are sacrificing our decisions on this basis, on
True.
their basis.
True.
So we don't have to sacrifice. We are not. We don't have to give our own freedom to them. So that's why we want to get rid of that debt.
True.
And for getting rid, what we can do is, just as Dr. Ali saying, that different ways. But one more thing from my perspective, like we should increase exports. This can be one of the way of getting rid of debt, because we'll
Right.
be able to get, will be like there will be less of deficit in our balance
Right.
of trade.
Right.
And other initiative we can also take, like the home remittances that are coming from abroad.
increase the-
Right.
So we
right.
can also like give them, incentivize it. We can also give those people's incentive that you can send it at legal channels instead
Right.
of putting a penalty of 10 to 20% on that
Right.
money. And they are now using more channels like hawalas and hundis, etc. So we can also like we can get rid of that thing. It's not a problem that don't have any solution. It have multiple solution, but we should follow it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think another solution, because as I told you, historically it's the budget deficit.
Right.
That one of the prime reasons that countries go into
Yeah.
debt, public debt especially.
Yeah, public.
Debt, as you
Right.
said.
Exactly.
It's the reason that the government goes in, has a budget deficit.
Right.
I think there are many reasons why we have a budget deficit. One of the prime reasons that we have a budget deficit is that in Pakistan our tax revenue
Yeah.
to the government is very low.
Right.
Our tax revenue to GDP ratio is one of the lowest in the
Lowest.
world.
Okay.
We are a big country, you know, where GDP is bigger, but people are not paying their taxes.
True.
So,
True.
so the budget deficit can be overcome by one reason where people pay more taxes.
More
But
taxes,
the problem
yeah.
is that why would someone pay a tax? If you look at countries in Europe, especially the UK, the reason people pay the tax is they know that when we are giving money to the government, our education, health and security
Yeah.
is
It's going to
something
be the
that
right
the government
place.
will
Exactly.
take
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Their national health service
Yeah.
is for everyone.
Yeah.
The school system is for everyone. You go to the you go in the neighborhood, you have a school. The richest person's child goes to that school, poorest child goes to that school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a
So
proper distribution of wealth.
in Pakistan, if you look at people like us, all three of us who are working in a university, our taxes are deducted at source.
True.
But when we have to go to a hospital, are we going to a public hospital?
Yeah.
Are our children going to public schools?
It's quite frustrating.
So
you know?
the reason, because we have no choice, we have to pay the tax,
True.
and we'll inshallah be paying the taxes all our lives.
Yeah.
We'll
But
continue doing that.
but those businesses
Yeah.
where it's not easy to collect the tax, and when they have to voluntarily pay the tax.
Right,
Okay?
right.
Because for us, we have for those people, the important thing is what do they get in return.
True. This is what matters.
So if a person was paying a tax, let's say 40,000 rupees monthly income tax, and he still has to send his child to a private school, and he has to go to a private hospital, he will not voluntarily pay you the tax. So the whole, we have to, what you call, reform our whole taxation system, where citizens can see that if we pay the tax, there is something for us. They will pay more taxes. When they pay more taxes, your revenue will go up and the deficit will go down and the public debt will go down.
Right, great. I think it's a very informative, sir, because to be honest, I wasn't really aware of that much of statistical information. But we'll go for a very short break, and after the break, we'll continue. Assalamualaikum, welcome back. This is your host Kulan Ayab. I happen to be a senior lecturer in MS department, and again this is something, a new initiative we have started with, the talk show, which is going to be on every Thursday, inshallah. And today we have our two guests here, Dr. Samreen and Dr. Ali Saeed. Welcome back, sir, from the break. Coming back to the questions, Dr. Ali Saeed, I would like to ask your stance about what is your stance about saving and investment?
I think it's saving and investment is very important. I think even if we look at it from the point of view of debt, because as a nation we need to save ourselves so that we have a lot of domestic savings and the projects that we are doing.
Right.
Because if you look at Pakistan's last budget that came last year, the development, for example, every budget has two sides: recurring budget and the development budget that's controlled by the Planning Commission. The development budget was actually the size of our deficit.
Right, right.
So let's suppose if for a second that we did not have any development expenditure, we would not have a deficit.
True.
So we need to have development projects. So if as a nation we are able to save, if our domestic saving rates are higher, if our government and our individuals are able to save, then that saving can be channelized towards investment in those projects.
Right, right.
So,
exactly.
so we will not have to borrow money from our domestic banks or foreign donors. So savings is very important.
Very important.
Especially we are a huge nation now, 20 crore plus. So a lot of opportunities where we can save. But I think as a nation, what has happened for many years, when we save, we put them into personal assets. For example, if we save money, we buy plots for ourselves, we buy sometimes the gold jewelry.
Right, it's a personal investment.
Okay, that's good for individual family, and it can be good investments for their long-term future. But as a nation, if you compare it to developed countries, a lot of people put their investment savings into stock market.
Right.
So their savings also get invested, but they get invested in stock market, in financial markets. And in that, the individuals benefit and the nation benefits. But here we are not saving a lot, but even when we are saving, that saving is not helping our macro economy. It's more of individual investments.
True.
And for now, in the last 15 years, a lot of our savings have gone to places like Dubai.
Right.
A few days ago, there was an article in the newspaper where Pakistanis have bought, thousands of apartments in Dubai. These are our savings which are invested in Dubai. So the benefit of that will go to the economy of Dubai.
Right.
Not to Pakistan.
And that's the reason we have more of a poverty gap now.
Their debt problem will come.
They
will overcome
they are overcoming their debt problem, not ours.
So and so that is the reason we are having more of a poverty gap. Way back it wasn't, now it's getting worse. Actually, sir, as we all know, our majority of audience is students. And I'm sure they would like to know what could be the adverse effect of this debt problem on our future generation, that is our students.
I think one problem it can be that if, for example, when we borrow a lot of money from our domestic banks and central bank, it leads to inflation.
Right.
Domestic borrowing, evidence has shown in literature that the more money printed by the central bank, the more the borrowing done by the federal government from domestic banks and the central banks, it leads to inflation. And inflation reduces the purchasing power of, and I think inflation again is another economic problem. Maybe we can have one show just on inflation. But for future generations, let's say if they're starting their careers today, a car that was 5 lakh rupees 10 years ago, it's 10 lakh rupees now.
Absolutely.
So I think inflation hits everyone in the economy.
Absolutely.
It will hit the youth as well, especially when they graduate and it's not easy to find the jobs. And if in your
that's
economy,
actually happening.
So if in your economy there is inflation and you're having difficulty in finding a suitable job, you'll start doing part-time jobs or jobs which are not
of your caliber,
of your education that you have. So I think the domestic debt has issues. It leads to inflation.
True.
And when we borrow from abroad, as I said, the freedom goes away. And then when our freedom goes away, our economy is not doing well, we can't travel that much.
Absolutely.
It takes us days and days to get visas. So debt has a impact on the economy. Your economy gets weaker. Then the foreign embassies and the foreign countries.
Foreign influences here.
So foreign
there are more
influences. So for youth, I would like the youth of Pakistan to be free. But the more and more debt we have, we will not be free.
The more trap we get.
We'll be in the trap. We'll be more in the foreign influence. So I hope the youth is able to rise on a day where there is no debt. There's just freedom. And there is no debt.
Dr. Simreen, आपका ख्याल में what do you think? What could the government play a role? Government क्या कर सकती है to ease this liquidity issue?
गवर्नमेंट बहुत कुछ कर सकती है अगर करने को आए.
Exactly.
So if they can borrow from IMF, so they can also get rid of the debt.
Right.
Like they can raise exports by giving them different kinds of subsidies, different incentivize it. They can give different kinds of home remittances. और home remittances के ऊपर कैप ना लगाएं और उसके ऊपर उनको 10% और 20% एक्स्ट्रा rebate ना दें, वो हो सकता है. Political uncertainty is one of the biggest issue. उसको remove कर सकती हैं कि अगर गवर्नमेंट्स की आपस में different political parties जो हैं वो एक दूसरे में ही नहीं है stable. If ठीक है general issues अपनी जगह, लेकिन अगर गवर्नमेंट की या पाकिस्तान की तरक्की को देखना है तो ऑब्वियसली उसमें हमें देखना होगा, हमने एक प्लेटफॉर्म लेके चलना होगा. तो तब हम रिमूव कर सकते हैं डिफरेंट प्रॉब्लम. और दूसरा एक इम्पॉर्टेंट जो एस्पेक्ट आजकल सीपैक की बात चल रही है, सीपैक भी बहुत एक नई चीज़ है. तो at times we are fear of it, क्योंकि at times people are saying China will come and they are kind of invading us. So हमने इन्वेड उनको नहीं करने देना. हमने इस तरह की पॉलिसीज़ अडॉप्ट करनी है. गवर्नमेंट इस तरह की पॉलिसीज़ लाई कि उससे हमारी कंट्री को बेनिफिट हो इंस्टेड ऑफ चाइना.
राइट मैम, आप बिल्कुल सही बात करिए. नॉर्मली when I discuss the CPAC to my students in the class, they're always of the fact which I agree to them to certain extent कि मैम चाइना जब हमारे इस लोकल मार्केट को कैप्चर कर रहा है, somehow we see the surface level of it, but we not see the deep level of it. Deeply they're actually damaging our local market.
They are
and
damaging. They are overcoming क्योंकि हमारी लोकल प्रोडक्ट सब कोई नहीं ले रहा.
बिल्कुल.
इवन वो पेन से लेके एक छोटा सा पेन है, पेन से लेके आप डिफरेंट हायर टेक्नोलॉजी तक ही चाइना से आ रही है.
बिल्कुल.
सो इट्स द गवर्नमेंट दैट कैन प्ले द रोल.
एग्जैक्टली.
वो इफ दे प्ले द रोल, इफ दे आर नॉट लेटिंग देम कि इस तरह की टेक्नोलॉजी, इस तरह की इम्पोर्ट्स ना आए जो कि हम वी आर केपेबल ऑफ प्रोड्यूसिंग, वो ना आए, तो फिर वो नहीं ला सकते. लेकिन अगर गवर्नमेंट इफ दे आर लेटिंग देम टू डू व्हाटएवर दे वांट, तो फिर तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता. क्योंकि ये गवर्नमेंट ही है, हम और आप मिलके बस बातें ही कर सकते हैं.
बिल्कुल ऐसा.
और इसके अलावा हम और कुछ नहीं कर सकते.
आपको कोई
coming back to what you just said, I would not totally agree with the word कि वो damaging हमारे साथ कर रहे हैं. देखें, एक सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है, हम पढ़ाते भी हैं कि काफ़ी जगह कस्टमर का डिसीजन होता है.
ऐसा ही है.
देखें, आप एक हद तक अपनी मार्केटिंग करते हैं, एक हद तक आप क्वालिटी लेके आते हैं प्रोडक्ट में, ایٹ دی اینڈ کسٹمر ڈیسائڈ کرتا ہے کہ اس نے کیا خریدنا ہے, کیا لینا ہے. میں آپ کو اگزامپل دیتا ہوں, ہم BUTV پہ بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں, ہمارے اس وقت عام جو شہر ہیں اسلام آباد, لاہور, کراچی, اس میں تقریباً ہر گھر میں جہاں ٹی وی ہے وہاں پہ 100 چینل آتے ہیں.
ایسا ہی ہے,
مطلب یا کیبل لگی ہوئی ہے یا کوئی پرووائڈر ہے, اب 100 چینل ہیں, ریموٹ کنٹرول آپ کے ہاتھ میں ہے.
بالکل صحیح.
آپ تو جس چیز میں اگر آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں ڈراماز, جس میں آپ کو میکسیمم انٹرٹینمنٹ نظر آئے گی, جو بھی آپ وہ آپ دیکھیں گے. اس میں اگر آپ کو ٹرکش ڈراما, وہ ایک آئی تھنک 3-4 ایئرز اگو ایک ٹرکش ڈراما بہت پاپولر ہوا تھا, آئی ڈونٹ نو دا نیم.
میرا سلطان,
نہیں آئی تھنک اس میں اردو 1 چینل پہ آتا تھا,
فاطمہ گل.
اس میں اس ڈرامے نے جو اردو زبان میں بھی نہیں تھا, جو انگلش کی زبان میں نہیں تھا, ڈبڈ تھا.
بالکل.
اس نے سارے پاکستانی ڈراموں کو پیچھے چھوڑ دیا تھا اور وہ لوگ ڈراما دیکھتے تھے. ٹھیک ہے, سو اٹس این انٹرنیشنل ورلڈ ناؤ. آپ زبردستی گورنمنٹ چاہے بھی تو وہ لوگوں کی خواہش کو نہیں بدل سکتی. اگر ان کو لگے گا کہ یہ چائنیز چیز اتنے پیسوں میں اس کوالٹی میں ہمیں قبول ہے تو وہ لیں گے. آپ اسے روکیں گے وہ اسمگلنگ ہو کے آ جائے گا. سو اگر آپ نے چائنا کو, لیٹ سپوز کہ یہ اگر ہم ایز اے نیشن گورنمنٹ یا لوگ یہ ڈیسائیڈ کریں کہ لیٹس سے ناٹ, آئی وڈ ناٹ سے چائنیز, کہ ہم امپورٹڈ چیز نہیں لیں گے.
اچھا,
لیٹ سپوز ہم یہ آج فیصلہ کرتے ہیں کہ ہم
نہیں لیں گے,
امپورٹڈ چیز نہیں لیں گے, تو پھر ڈومیسٹک پروڈیوسر کو کافی محنت کرنی پڑے گی. اس کو اپنی ٹیکنیکس کو پروڈکشن بہتر کرنی پڑے گی, ٹیکنالوجی کو یوز کر کے ہمارے پاکستانیوں کو, ہمارے کسٹمرز کو فورن چیز سے کم قیمت میں وہ ایک اچھی چیز دینی پڑے گی.
بالکل ایسا ہی ہے, بالکل ایسا.
اگر وہ چائنیز پچھلے 20 سال میں پوری دنیا میں وہ یہ کر سکتے ہیں, انہوں نے کیا ماڈل بنایا کہ انہوں نے امریکہ سے لے کے تائیوان تک, جس ملک سے ان کی دشمنی ہے, اس ملک میں بھی اپنی چیزیں جا کے بیچی. اس وجہ سے کہ ان کی چیز کی جو قیمت تھی اور جو کوالٹی تھی وہ a combination of two. It was not just quality. The quality and its price. اس combination سے ان کے لوگ کسٹمرز بنے ہیں اور بنتے جا رہے ہیں. تو کیا ہمیں کون روک رہا ہے, گورنمنٹ کو اور لوگوں کو, کہ ہم ایسی چیزیں بنائیں کہ جس کی پرائس اور کوالٹی چائنیز سے بہتر ہو, تو لوگ وہ لے لیں گے, وہ ہم لے لیں گے. سو آئی تھنک ہم نے بھی محنت کرنی ہے.
اب بیسکلی ہمارا امیج اب چینج ہو چکا ہے. پہلے ہم چائنیز پروڈکٹ کو اتنا زیادہ نہیں ترجیح دیتے تھے, بٹ ناؤ وی آر ایکچولی فوکس اینڈ انکلائن ٹورڈز بائنگ چائنیز دین دی پاکستانی پروڈکٹس. تو اگین اٹ از پلئنگ اٹس رول.
بیکاز دیکھیں کسٹمر, فار ایگزامپل حب الوطنی ایک سٹیج تک ہی ہو سکتی ہے.
بالکل بالکل ایسا ہی ہے.
آپ اپنے ٹی وی لان میں بیٹھے ہیں, آئی ایم شیور آپ پاکستان ٹیم کو ہی سپورٹ کریں گے, اور آپ انگلینڈ کی ٹیم کو یا آسٹریلیا کی ٹیم کو نہیں سپورٹ کریں گے, اور ہمیشہ انڈیا کے خلاف ہی ہوں گے. لیکن جب آپ ایک چیز لینے جائیں گے اور آپ سب سے پہلے یہ نہیں دیکھیں گے میڈ ان کدھر ہے, آپ تو دیکھیں گے آپ کی ضرورت کیا ہے, آپ کی جیب میں کتنے پیسے ہیں, تو وہ فیصلہ کریں گے. حب الوطنی
ایک حد تک
ہے, کرکٹ کے میچ تک ہو سکتی ہے, لباس میں ہو سکتی ہے, لیکن ایک آپ کی انکم ہے, آپ کے بچے ہیں, آپ نے سیونگ کی بات کی, یو وانٹ ٹو سیو, یو وانٹ ٹو میک شیور دیٹ یو گیٹ دا بیسٹ ان یور انکم. ٹھیک ہے نا, تو اس لحاظ سے ہمیں تھوڑا سا ہمیں خود بھی محنت کرنی پڑے گی.
لائک وی آر پروڈیوسنگ کوالٹی پروڈکٹس, لیکن وہی بات ہے کہ پرائسز بھی بہت ہائی ہوتی ہیں. میرا اپنا ایکسپیرینس ہے, like even in the international market when I was abroad, so I was there to buy a shoe, تو بہت اچھی quality, and that was made in Pakistan. So I was so happy at that time, but it was priced so high that I was unable to purchase that. So at least even ہمارا cotton بہت اچھا ہے, and it has a huge demand in international market. سارے towels اور beddings and all the stuff goes there. But still, like, we are charging it so high that people are unable to buy.
True.
Plus, اگر آپ ریٹ کے لحاظ سے بھی دیکھیں, like پاکستان میں I have a small son, اس کا ایون پاؤڈرڈ ملک بھی امپورٹڈ ہے. مطلب اگر ہم بچوں کا پاؤڈر ملک بھی نہیں بنا سکتے اچھی کوالٹی کا, میں اپنے بچے کو تو وہی ملک دوں گا جو میں سمجھتا ہوں اس کی صحت کے لیے سب سے بہتر ہے. تو جب ہم پاؤڈر ملک ہی نہیں بنا سکتے, وہ بھی ہم نے امپورٹ کرنا ہے, اور ایکسپورٹس ہماری کم ہے, تو ڈیٹ تو پرابلم ہو گئی. سو آئی تھنک گورنمنٹ اینڈ دا پیپل ہیو ٹو سیریسلی سی کہ جو ہم جو پروڈیوس کر رہے ہیں اس کی کیا کوالٹی ہے, اس فنش پروڈکٹ کی کیا پرائس ہے, کیوں ہم ایسی چیز بنا رہے ہیں جو باقی ملک اس سے سستی, کیا وہ کر رہے ہیں جس سے ان کی آئٹمز چائنا ہے, آپ کے نیبرز ہیں لائک کنٹری لائک بنگلہ دیش, یو نو ملیشیا, انڈونیشیا ہے, تھائی لینڈ ہے. آپ بتائیں ان 3-4 ملکوں نے, مطلب آئی ول ناٹ نیم انڈیا میں نہ میں کبھی گیا ہوں نہ مجھے اتنا, بٹ آئی بین ٹو تھائی لینڈ, یو نو آپ اس کو دیکھیں, ملیشیا انڈونیشیا کو دیکھیں, واٹ دے ور 40 years ago, what they are today. انہوں نے اپنی بہت زیادہ پروڈکشن بڑھائی ہے. آپ کوریا کو دیکھیں, وہ 50-60 میں ہمارے ڈیولپمنٹ پلانز لے گئے, اور آج ان کے موبائل آئی تھنک سیمسنگ از تو ان کی گاڑیاں ہیونڈائی اس وقت دنیا میں ون آف دی ہائیسٹ گاڑیوں کی سیل ہے. آئی ایم شیور ان کو ڈیٹ کی پرابلم نہیں ہوگی.
We do have the core competency, but we're not capitalizing on strength. We'll continue with this such a interesting discussion, but right after a short break. Welcome back. This is your host again, Gul Nayab. We'll continue with such an interesting discussion that we're having here. Again, coming back to Dr. Samreen. Dr. Samreen, آپ نے بڑی ایک alarming situation بتائی ہے about the statistical information. Do you think it is going to get more alarming, or do you think we see a solution coming to such a figure?
Like if we take the opportunity of a CPAC, if we take like utilize it in full potential, right, so it's an opportunity, we can get rid of it, right. The debt overcome کر سکتے ہیں, but still مطلب وہی ہے کہ پالیسیز اور اسٹریٹجیز اس طرح کی ہوں تاکہ ہم اس کو اوور کم کر پائیں. امپلائمنٹ ریٹ جو ہمارا روز بروز ان امپلائمنٹ اسٹیٹسٹکس انکریز ہو رہی ہیں, وہ یہی ہے کہ ہم فارن انویسٹمنٹ کو اتنا ویلکم نہیں کر رہے. وی آر ناٹ میکنگ ڈفرنٹ ٹائپس آف پالیسیز تاکہ وہ فارن انویسٹمنٹ آئے. ایک میجر ہماری جو بدقسمتی ہم کہہ سکتے ہیں کہ ٹیررزم از اے بگیسٹ ایشو. لائک ایچ اینڈ ایوری ون از فیئرڈ آف اس. لائک اف یو جسٹ سے دیٹ وی آر اے پاکستانی, سو دے جسٹ تھنک 10 times ٹو انویسٹ ود یو. کہ لائک آپ کی انسٹیبلٹی اتنی زیادہ ہو گئی ہے اکانومی میں, اینڈ دس از آل بیکاز آف اس, بیکاز وی آر انٹرمنگلنگ ان دا ادرز ایشوز. obviously ہماری کنٹری میں تو نہیں تھا, لیکن اور کنٹریز میں تھا, اور اسی میں ہم ہاتھ ڈال کے اب اپنے گھر میں ہمارے آگ آ گئی ہے. سو اسی کو ہم ایڈریس کر سکتے ہیں. گورنمنٹ اچھا انیشیٹو لے رہی ہے, وہ ہم نہیں کہہ سکتے, بٹ اسٹل جو آگ لگی ہے اس کو بجھانے میں بھی ٹائم لگے گا. بالکل وہ اتنی جلدی اتنی بڑھ چکی ہے کہ وہ انٹرنیشنل مارکیٹ میں آپ کا نام چلا گیا ہے. تو اب وہ ظاہری بات ہے, وہ کانفیڈینس نہیں آ سکتا اتنا جلدی, بٹ اسٹل ہم کر سکتے ہیں. وی کین پوٹ اے لاٹ آف ایفرٹ. ہم میڈیا کے تھرو, اپنے اسٹوڈنٹ کے تھرو, ہمارے جو ریپرزینٹیٹیوس ہیں ڈفرینٹ کنٹریز میں, ان کے تھرو ہم اپنا امیج چینج کر سکتے ہیں.
And a youth population can actually help in it.
Can help.
Change that
اچھا,
image.
دوسرا یہ ہے کہ ایک میڈیا دوسرا جو بہت بڑا رول پلے کر رہی ہے, وہ یہ ہے کہ they are projecting a negative image of Pakistan. چھوٹی سی بات ہوتی ہے, وہ اتنا بڑھا چڑھا کے انٹرنیشنل اور سارے نیشنل اینڈ انٹرنیشنل چینلز کے اوپر آ رہے ہوتے ہیں. تو وہ لائک ٹھیک ہے, ہمارا مسئلہ ہے, سو ہم کو ہی ہینڈل کرنا ہے. انسٹیڈ کہ ہم بولتے جائیں, ہمارے بہت سے ریلیٹیوز ہیں یہاں پہ, چھوٹا سا بلاسٹ ہوگا یا تھوڑا بہت کچھ ہوگا بھی نہیں, بعض دفعہ کیجویلٹی بھی نہیں ہوتی, بٹ اسٹل وہ نیوز وہاں تک پہنچ جاتی ہے, باہر سے فون آتے رہتے ہیں, آپ لوگ خیریت سے ہیں, ٹھیک ہے.
Which is very discouraging, very demotivating for us actually.
Yeah, so terrorism is one of the like factor that is elevating debt. And the other is like the media image. ہم اپنا image خود ہی اچھا کریں گے تو اچھا لوگ کہیں گے.
بالکل.
اگر آپ اپنے آپ کو خود ہی برا برا کہیں گے تو لوگ کہیں گے ہاں یہ تو ہے ہی برا.
ایسا ہی ہے, ایسا ہی ہے. اپنے آپ کو اچھا بنائیں گے تو اچھا نظر بھی
آئے گا.
بالکل صحیح. I think so we're going to have a last ending note message for the students that you would like to give, because I know there are a lot of students right now viewing us. So anything that could be fruitful to students.
I think two things I would like to mention. One relevant to this program and one a little irrelevant. One jo thodi si ek aur cheez hai. Very sadly, 2 days ago, one of our BBA students passed away, aur uska gas leakage raat ko, young student, BBA second semester ka student, he passed away 2 nights ago because wo gas leakage hui kamre mein. So I think my message to our students, especially who are living in hostels, jo جن کے اوپر پیرنٹس کی سپرویژن اس طرح نہیں ہے, اور یہ ورلڈ وائڈ فنامنا ہے, اسٹوڈنٹس ہاسٹل میں رہتے ہیں, میں بھی باہر گیا تھا, آپ لوگ یو نو. سو پاکستان میں آئی تھنک یہ بہت بڑا ایشو ہے, مری میں کچھ ڈیتھس ہوئی ہیں. سو آئی تھنک اسٹوڈنٹس پیپل ہیو ٹو بی ویری کیئرفل کہ رات کو ہیٹر سونے سے پہلے بند کر دیں.
بالکل صحیح.
آئی تھنک اٹس یہ ایک سوئسائڈ بامب ہے. آپ اگر پڑھ رہے ہیں,
گھر میں رکھا ہوا ہے,
جو گھر میں ہم نے ہے, اور آپ پڑھ رہے ہیں, آپ تھکے ہوئے ہیں, ہیٹر آن ہے, آپ کی آنکھ لگ جائے, ایک بار رات کو آنکھ لگ جائے گی, پھر آپ صبح ہی اٹھیں گے, you know. So I think this is my one message that I would like to give from the BUTV platform to our Bahria students and to the world, all our student community. وہ ایک بچہ تھا, وہ جس طرح ہمارے بچے ہیں, you know, our students are just like our sons and daughters. تو یہ بہت کیئرفل رہے ہیں اس میں. اور دوسری چیز relevant to this program that I would like to give message to the youth is کہ اپنی ینگ ایج سے ہی دو چیزیں اپنے آپ روٹین میں ڈالیں کہ اگر لیٹ سپوز آپ کو جتنا پیرنٹس پاکٹ منی دیتے ہیں اتنا ہی اسپینڈ کریں. ٹھیک ہے, اگر آپ کو وہ 100 روپیز دن میں دیتے ہیں تو پھر آپ 100 روپیز کا ایکسپینڈیچر کریں, اور فرینڈ سے مت بورو کریں, بیکاز آج آپ بورو کریں گے کل آپ کو یو نو وہی آپ ڈیٹ پرابلم میں چلے جائیں گے. تو اتنا ہی اسپینڈ کریں جتنا پیرنٹس دے رہے ہیں. اور لیٹ سپوز کہ اگر وہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ ان کا خرچہ 100 سے زیادہ ہے تو پھر 1-2 گھنٹے پارٹ ٹائم کام کریں, پھر محنت کریں نا. چلو آپ ٹھیک ہے, آپ 100 روپیز آپ کو فادر نے دیے ہیں اور آپ کا دن کا خرچہ 200 ہے, تو پھر آپ 24 گھنٹے میں سے, جس طرح باہر اسٹوڈنٹس پارٹ ٹائم کام کرتے ہیں, آئی نیو لاٹ آف اسٹوڈنٹ جو صبح نیوز پیپر ڈراپ کرتے تھے, 6 o'clock اٹھتے تھے, نیوز پیپر ڈراپ کر کے یا صبح کا کوئی کام کر کے یونیورسٹی آتے تھے, یو نو. تو سو دونوں چیزیں ہیں, یا جتنی پاکٹ منی پیرنٹس دے رہے ہیں اس میں اپنے آپ کو کریں, اور لیٹس سے خرچہ زیادہ تو پھر جاب کریں پارٹ ٹائم,
بلکہ کوشش کریں 100 روپے میں سے سیونگ کر لیں,
اور جاب کریں پارٹ ٹائم. واٹ اسٹاپنگ دیم فرام ورکنگ اے پارٹ ٹائم جاب. پارٹ ٹائم جاب کریں, خرچہ زیادہ کمائیں, خرچ کریں, سیو کریں,
بالکل become self sufficient,
be self sufficient, have that freedom. So I think so that is my second message, and thank you for inviting me.
Very interesting, sir, very interesting. I'm really liking the program, although this is the first time that we're doing it, but I'm learning a lot from such a resource people. Ma'am, coming back to you, what could be your message to the youth listening to us?
My message will be that ایک تو اپنا ٹائم ویسٹ نہ کریں, کیونکہ آج کل جو سب سے بڑا المیہ ہے بچوں کا وہ یہی ہے کہ دے آر ویسٹنگ دیئر ٹائم بائی یوز لیس تھنگس. لائک موبائل پہ کبھی سیلفیز ہو رہی ہیں, تو کبھی فیس بک دیکھا جا رہا ہے, تو کبھی گوگل پہ ویڈیوز دیکھی جا رہی ہیں. سو لائک ویسٹنگ یور ٹائم یو ول اچیو نتھنگ ایٹ دی اینڈ.
That's true.
اور دوسرا سر نے جیسے سیونگ کی بات کی, میں تھوڑی انویسٹمنٹ کی بات کروں, کیونکہ ایک گروپ کو میں لے کے گئی تھی یہاں پہ stock exchange. So they have such a nice things, and you can invest in stocks at the very smallest level. Like you can start your investment from like 10,000 even.
Right.
So 10,000 is nothing in nowadays. So آپ کر سکتے ہیں 10,000 کی انویسٹمنٹ کرنا. ضروری تو نہیں کہ 1 crore جیب میں ہوگا تبھی ہم انویسٹ کریں گے. So if we like start investing at the very early age, so we are used to deal with those small petty cashes, and we know how to rotate it and how to make money out of it. So اگر اس لیول سے ہم اسٹارٹ کریں, so maybe in future we'll able to do more bigger investment that is more fruitful for our economy.
Right. So you mean starting from the very, you know,
very, or at that time like we are more optimistic.
Exactly.
Student age میں یہ ہے کہ آپ بہت ہی optimistic ہوتے ہیں. As your age grows, so you are not optimistic anymore. Or at that time you are able to take more and more risks. اگر آپ loss بھی آ جاتا ہے تو you can overcome it. ये नहीं है कि हम 60 तक पहुंचे, जॉब को ढूंढते रहें और फिर 60 के बाद इन्वेस्टमेंट करें. एट दैट टाइम यू आर मेंटली लाइक एग्जॉस्टेड, यू आर नॉट इन अ स्टेट ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग.
Absolutely.
सो इन्वेस्टमेंट अगर अर्लियर स्टेजेस में हो, और जितनी भी मिसालें हैं दुनिया में, सारों छोटी छोटी एजेस से उन्होंने इन्वेस्टमेंट शुरू की एंड दे आर बिलियनियर्स.
True, true. I think it was very interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we look forward again for every Thursday. This MS Department program would be there as a talk show. And thank you very much, Dr. Ali Said. Thank you very much, Dr. Sami.
for inviting us.
And that's about it. Take care, take your audience, and keep watching us every Thursday. Thank you. Allah.